the cloud and data and analytics. I wanted to cover also artificial intelligence, which of course everybody, is excited about. And especially recently, there's a lot of publicity about how artificial intelligence is reaching the point where it can really make change in the world. Briefly talk about amortization, and also kind of connecting all the dots into kind of a vast IT ecosystem. So now I wanted to start with a very simple video about data. So hopefully you will be able to hear this and watch. I'll play it now. So just, everything is about data. Business is about data. Yeah, I'm sorry if you couldn't hear the audio may not have gone through, and I apologize for that. It was just music, so I mean I apologize just watching without the background. But I mean, at least the visual of the video, gives the message. Everything is about data. Everything is backed by data. So how do you use this data, to best, help businesses in modern day context? So if you go back to the typical business, and I'm talking, medium to large scale businesses over the course of maybe, the last decade, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, what happens is every enterprise builds different solutions. And this is even more so for the government, that you have a set of, by the end of, modern times, you have a set of many different applications that you're using as an enterprise. So you have custom files lying in different repositories and different systems. You have potentially different enterprise systems and enterprise applications. You have custom solutions that maybe you've built in-house or you've brought in from other places. And you also have maybe large scale systems like enterprise role planning solutions. And sometimes that's even fragmented across multiple vendors. So what's the problem here? Does it matter? Yes, of course it matters, because when as a business you need to make a change, it's very hard to make that change because you have your applications and your data fragmented and scattered across. And it's very expensive to maintain this. You have fragmented information, you have non-uniform security, inaccurate data. I mean, the list goes on, as you can see. So now, what's going on in the current trend in the current market? What's happening is, two major things that, kind of come out of here. So you have your legacy IT landscape. That legacy IT landscape is now very quickly and rapidly moving to a cloud platform. And this is, a movement for the last 20 years, but really has been, I would say, really starting to move into full gear in the last 10 years with, not only Oracle coming on board recently, but Amazon, Azure for Microsoft. So you have large cloud platforms for businesses and even government, right? And not only do these cloud platforms give you the infrastructure, as a service, but also gives you platforms and even software as a service. So typically in the past, you would have, like an enterprise role planning system, supply chain management here, and human capital management. Sometimes people call that, HRMS, human resources management system. So those are now in the cloud and they're ready to use as web applications, right? So what you have is you have enterprises. Salesforce is another very big example of this. You have enterprises that are moving towards using these applications instead of deploying them in their own data center or creating them from scratch. Then the second trend is consolidation of data. So here, that's why you have the autonomous data warehouse here. And this is an Oracle offering, but any data warehouse or data lake house, data lake can be formatted for any enterprise or any context. So what you have is you have your data being put together in a way that it can be digested easily. And you have the enterprise going to a uniform platform that's web-based to make it easier on everybody. And these solutions in the backend are unified. So now you have the data consolidated. So you have the same, let's say, theme and homogenized stack for each business. So what does that lead to? Of course, it makes it very easy to manage and maintain all your IT assets. It connects all the systems together. It also allows you to make very rapid changes that respond to market conditions. If you need a new technology stack, if you need a new set of functionality, you can do that within weeks instead of waiting 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, when you have a very large system to move to a new version, or you have, the information across multiple systems trying to put it together. And of course, you have many benefits. I just mentioned a few. So, and of course, it's very cost effective. So, especially with the cloud, you don't have data center, you don't have, data center worries, you don't have your own hardware that you have to worry about. So you have, let's say it's operationally much easier. All the headache of operations is, let's say, minimized and made much easier. So what does this lead to? This leads to a harmonized IT ecosystem that leads to, let's say, enhanced business. You have business intelligence. So here, let's go from external data sources will always be there. You always, as a business, and even government, you have external government data sources coming in. Now what you have is you have a software as a service ecosystem and a homogenized or centralized data let's say warehouse that takes all of the data within the enterprise and puts it together. Then, the biggest trend of artificial intelligence, which I'll talk about next, with this enterprise data and analytics gives you that intelligence that you need. So what you have, for example, at the end of the day is you have insight into corporate inefficiencies that you would not have before. So you can understand very quickly what process, what procedure doesn't work, right? What's causing your business to stall? What's causing you to have problems? And, let's say, what are the barriers to increase your revenue by 50%, 100%, 500%? Maybe there are inefficiencies in the systems that you have. You can have advanced reporting. So this is really essential, especially for business decision makers like C-levels and directors and even government officials. They need to know, how many, items did we sell in the last year, in the last month, in the last week? What's going on? Do we have a downtrend? Do we have an uptrend? Also, you have irregularities. For example, if a process is not working the way it's expected, you may not know until 6 months later when you've had serious impact. So those kind of things can be highlighted immediately through this consolidated IT ecosystem, and it can come back and tell you, look, the system is telling us that this process is really not working as expected. So and of course, now you have a coverage of all of your transactions and employees. So you can really help your utilization, as a company. And another cool thing that we'll talk about a little bit more is natural language processing. So this kind of ecosystem, especially with artificial intelligence, is, let's say, natural language processing is when you speak to a system and ask, so are there any process inefficiencies in the order fulfillment cycle? If you set it up correctly, the system will understand what you're saying and go back to the system and give you the answer that you're looking for. It'll say, okay, we see these potential process inefficiencies in the fulfillment cycle. So this is the exciting like future that we're headed towards. It's really exciting because not only do you have, you know, operational and management efficiency, you know, cost savings, but you also have this, you know, data layer that you can derive intelligence out of. Any questions so far? Anything that, you know, you would like me to describe a little bit more based on what I've said? Okay, so I'll go to the next topic. And the next topic is, you know, of course, all the buzz around artificial intelligence, and specifically intelligent. I'll talk about intelligent chatbots and AI, under, and I'm most of what I'm addressing is we the UAE 2031, because this is really the future. Right. So the future of IT, and IT is really literally shaping how we live as societies. So to give you a sense of, you know, the depth of artificial intelligence, first of all, let's step back. You know, what is artificial intelligence? I mean, maybe people don't understand it. What is machine learning? Artificial intelligence is just simply put any IT system. It can even be, let's say, a robot, for example, any IT system that can mimic human behavior. So, for example, the greatest example right now, and everybody's, you know, really excited about it, and Google's all like scared about ChatGPT by the OpenAI organization. I'm sure everybody here has tried it. So you basically ask it natural language questions, and it gives you a very in-depth response. You know, unlike Google, where you ask it, you know, like you can ask it anything, but it'll just give you web links. Here, it interprets data and gives it back to you. So this is a great example of what artificial intelligence is. And people are looking at, I mean, I don't know if you've used ChatGPT, it's not perfect, but it gives you a lot of rich information. So I know myself, you know, colleagues of mine, friends of mine that are using it as kind of a business analyst. So you have like, you know, a write-up that's due in a week, you go to ChatGPT, you ask it to do the write-up. You give it the topic and it will actually give you maybe 80% of what you need. So these tools are not a substitute for humans, but they're also kind of, they are, let's say, a way and a means to get higher or hyper productivity. So looking at, you know, what this is just Oracle stack in artificial intelligence currently. So you start with what we call data science, which is nothing other than artificial intelligence. And machine learning is using an algorithm of artificial intelligence and teaching it like a baby. So now the simplest case is, you know, what is a car? So if you give a machine, you know, a picture of a car, it will not understand that that's a car. So with machine learning and an artificial intelligence algorithm, right, you give it 10,000 pictures, 1 million pictures, and in each picture you say, this is a car, this is a car, this is a car. Over the course of time, it will understand, okay, now if you give me a new picture, I can understand what a car is. So without, you know, without any hints, I can find the car and tell you, okay, with high confidence, I believe that this is a car. So, I mean, that's how it works. So what do you get out of it? So you have, you know, our digital assistant, which is, you know, chatbot, you know, that I'll talk about a little bit more. OCI speech recognition and response, OCI language written, you know, OCI vision. And like I said, you know, recognizing what a car is, what a tree is. People don't understand that, you know, the human ability to look at any image and say, okay, I think that's a tree, is extremely profound and extremely difficult. So, you know, it's taken literally 70, 80 years of engineering and algorithms and understanding how, you know, to mimic what the brain does to try to get to the point where we can actually have an intelligent agent go in and say, okay, I think that, and even, to a high degree of certainty that I think there are 10 trees in this picture, right? Having that is really amazing. Document understanding, anomaly detection is a really good one. And I hinted at this, before in the data set. Anomaly detection is amazing because when you have a large amount of data, a large amount of processes, a large amount of transactions, a human cannot go in and say, okay, I think this process or this procedure or this record is not right. It's not possible. That's why auditors always sample. So you have auditors coming in and saying, is your procurement cycle per standard and, running correctly? They will always sample. Out of 10,000 records, they might take 5 or 10 or 30, and they'll go through individual and say, okay, this is a good spot check. But now with artificial intelligence, you can actually go in and scan every single record, millions, even billions, and come back and say, okay, I think this set of 10 or 15 or 100 are not right. There's something wrong. So then a business can respond properly. Forecasting is another one. So trends for if a company sets this up correctly over the last 5-10 years, that data can be used to say, okay, I think that we need this kind of service for our users, right? Because this is what is really, let's say, users are interested in. So forecasting not only how business will be, what our cost will be, what our market demand will be, what users will look at, all this forecasting can be done with the correct algorithms. So just to go through some use cases of artificial intelligence in industry, I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you a hint of these. So in manufacturing, insurance, oil and gas, and automotive industry, there are many use cases that are already in action in the industry. So for example, in manufacturing, predictive and condition-based maintenance, demand, forecasting, and inventory. You have product quality analytics. All of these things help manufacturers become more efficient in their manufacturing. Price optimization. Just imagine a manufacturer of, computers or even some small item. They're making millions a year. If they can just save 0.1 cent or 0.5 cents on each component, you're talking about millions in savings over time. Insurance, for example, risk analysis is a really big one with insurance. Fraud as well, detection of fraud from their consumers. So it's very hard to catch fraud when you have 1 million customers. How are you going to catch fraud? And you might catch the fraud maybe 1 year, 2 years down the road when something doesn't look right. But no, with artificial intelligence, you can actually catch fraud before as it's happening and close that loophole immediately. Oil and gas is a huge one here in this region, of course, in the United Arab Emirates and the Gulf in general. And these are very obvious here: operational risk and environment, and logistics and operations. In the automobile industry, you have customer engagement, warranty claims, again around fraud, and ranking customers in terms of credit scores. You also have banking, healthcare, telcos, and retail. Again, the thing is, with artificial intelligence, you are literally talking about, trying to mimic anything a human can do, at a larger scale. So if you can mimic, let's say, what auditors do for risk management in banking, instead of applying it to a small set, you can apply it to all of your banking. Telco, for example, data monetization, retail, personalization, understanding your customers at a whole different level. Instead of just doing simple surveys, you actually look at the habits of your customer base, and then you can actually personalize offerings based on artificial intelligence algorithms. And also demand prediction is a really good one as well. What will the demand be for selling purses this coming summer? So based on historical data, you have highly intelligent data coming back to you that predicts, as best as possible what's going to happen, so that you can really be prepared for that demand. And of course, healthcare and public sector, it's, of course, we don't want to be too far-fetched with artificial intelligence, but there are many use cases where now with artificial intelligence algorithms, they are at high accuracy, able to like process, for example, x-rays of potential cancer patients, and with 95% accuracy say, does this patient show symptoms of cancer or not? So I mean, even taking away, not taking away, but let's say filling in a gap of where doctors can't do large amounts of data. And just wrapping up the AI use cases, you have also departmental within not only companies, but also governments. You have, on the IT side, marketing, HR, and finance. So you have a very rich set of use cases across the board. I mean, they're really, honestly, with artificial intelligence, the sky's the limit. One small use case that I wanted to discuss a little bit more is, the intelligent chatbot, which is actually mentioned in the UAE Hackathon themes and technologies. So how does a digital assistant work? Normally, you guys, I'm sure you've had, chatbots, not meaning, let's say, conversations with companies, through some kind of chat device. Well, what chatbots do, and smart chatbots do, is they replace the beginning of the conversation. So based on, typical scenarios, based on, what customers normally ask, and based on artificial intelligence, you have, pre-canned answers. Let's say 90% of the typical answers that are required for customers are given to them already. So what that gives you is the ability to not have to have that many people, engaged, 24/7, trying to get, night shifts and difficulty, and also the cost of manpower. That gets all replaced for big businesses. It's really amazing. So the key components, you have the channels that come into the chatbot. You have the actual dialogue, and this is based on artificial intelligence. You have the dialogue is, I mean, it's set up in terms of, what, let's say, should drive the conversation. Then you have the AI, which actually comes in and understands what the customer is saying and tries to respond in an intelligent way. And of course, you have the integration to the back end systems. And here's just a simple example, somebody, filling out and conversing with a chatbot. And this can be used also, if you remember, supply chain management, ERP, human capital management. This can be used in-house as well. It's a very, very, let's say, valuable tool that allows you to the business itself can take care of a lot of things automatically, instead of having HR people helping staff. They can actually go 1, 2, 3, I'm done. Right. So just with a very simple chatbot, instead of going and logging into an application and going through and then going to HR, well, how do I do this? What do I do? Instead of that, you just have one little very intelligent chatbot on your mobile device, submit an expense. immediately. Take a picture of the expense report of the, let's say, receipt, and say that, look, this is an expense. It automatically goes to the ERP system. Report an absence. Look, I'm going to be absent tomorrow, or I need vacation tomorrow. Instead of going through an HCM or HRMS system, you simply can even speak to it, say, please report an absence, and my vacation request for next week. Or, today I don't feel well, I won't be at work. And you speak into your mobile device, and boom, everything is done, behind the scenes. So, I mean, the future is really, really promising and very cool in terms of artificial intelligence. Any questions, any comments? I mean, I welcome anything, in terms of, asking more. Okay, I'll go to the next one. And this is actually no problem, Manal. Thank you for the comment. Now, the next one is interesting, and I'm going to more speak more about this. So, of course, in UAE, we have, Emiratization, and we have, education, especially for UAE nationals. Now, I personally do research on this. This is like a topic of research for me, during my studies of, what does it take to make let's say, successful Emiratization process, and succeed in Emiratization. So one of the key things that, researchers have been saying for the last 10 plus years is that, there is, in the public schooling, there is, let's say, a lack of preparation, and then, especially Emiratis come into the market without the same skills as their expat colleagues. So this is a major problem. How do you fix that? Very, very simple, right? With, special training programs, certifications, and just to kind of put this all together with the trend of augmented reality and the metaverse. I'm sure you guys have heard about the metaverse. Facebook even changed its name to Meta because they know that this is it's just basically virtual reality, right? So this is a really simple POC. I'll show you, and it looks like my sound is not going through, but it's okay. You at least get the concept. So this here is like a very simple POC that we ran here in UAE, and it's kind of like a virtual campus. This is like Oracle onboarding here. This is the example, but it could be used for you basically have a virtual world. You can have a virtual university or a virtual, learning environment where you go and get certifications, go to, university classes, attend classes, take tests. So
Hello,
this is definitely happening.
My name is Elmar van Imnes, and I have the privilege to lead the best team in the world from a vast region, including Greece, Africa, and the Middle East.
So the scenario we're doing here is, this is a new employee at Oracle, in Dubai, in our Dubai office, coming in to a virtual world, helping him onboard, and learning about what he's supposed to do. So you have him come to the initial person and ask, and she directs him to the correct way. Now he's going to the different stops here and, learning about what he's supposed to be doing. And of course, you can have virtual classrooms, you can have virtual interactive sessions, even with other people. It's all, this is, again, something that's going to evolve very quickly over the next 5-10 years. And it's something very exciting. So, and I mean, of course, everybody knows because of the COVID, online is the de facto standard now. In just 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I would be standing in front of you in a room, but now I'm not. I'm, here, way away from you, but of course you're getting all the value that you would even if I was there. So the next step is virtual reality, the metaverse, and kind of building this augmented and virtual reality ecosystem that can be used by any sector. And a really exciting one is, of course, education, online universities, online certification and training programs. Now, the last part of this is just simply connecting all the dots, but also giving you kind of another level of how all of this fits together. So, I've talked about many of these things already, but all these digital, and many of these are specifically like digital assistant, which is, intelligent chatbot, blockchain, all of these AI, IoT are all part of, the UAE hackathons themes this year, technology themes. So what you do is you connect all of this together, in a normally large organization. Small organization would not have obviously all of these things, but a large organization backed by the IT components of all of these, not only the software as a service components, but also the data platform, but also having a digital assistant, having the blockchain, cybersecurity, AI, IoT monitoring, and mobility, of course, de facto is mobility now. Everybody's focused on mobility, leads to, a very rich and efficient ecosystem that IT ecosystem that we never had before. Right? We have everything's connected in a way that can give you innovation. Lead to cash is just, customer in CRM terms, customer relationship management. A lead, in sales is when you have somebody that's interested in your product, all the way to cash, delivering that service to him and getting the money for it. A lead to cash, of course, a resilient supply chain. And the supply chain, as we all know, has had major issues in the last few years, primarily due to COVID, and also the shortage of smart chips. So the supply chain, and we've seen that in car manufacturing, where you can't even get, like, for example, in UAE, the wait list for a new Land Rover is 2 years, because they're just not making enough, because they don't have enough supplies. And it's across the board, and that's why all the expenses globally, not only in the US and, the West, but also here in UAE, so, prices are going like crazy. Not only prices, but also businesses are getting very clever and giving you less for the same amount of money that they were charging you just like 3 years ago. These are all because of supply chain disruption. So, this ecosystem leads to a resilient supply chain that can respond to, difficult market conditions. Smart manufacturing and digital logistics, logistics that's, let's say, backed by a strong technology, backing of enterprise applications. So your logistics is streamlined and efficient, and of course, enterprise services in general. We didn't talk about, and this is not one of the themes, but I thought it was very interesting to point out, because many people don't understand what it is, but you'll see a digital twin. Anybody know what a digital twin is, in the audience? Okay, so what a digital twin is any system on Earth, whether it's a city, like a physical system, a city, or a factory, or a manufacturing facility. A digital twin is basically very good. Thank you, Rohit. That's exactly right. So just adding to what you wrote, it's basically a fully functional digital version of something physical. right? So you have, for example, a factory, or a very common use case is a electricity plant, right? A power plant. Power plant, you represent it, or even traffic, for example, traffic patterns within a city. You represent it 100% fully digitally, right? And you run it. That allows you to simulate things that you couldn't do in real life, right? So power surges in power plants, let's say breakage, or power grid shortage in a city context, water supply, let's say simulating high demand in manufacturing, simulating from end to end what could happen in different scenarios. So a digital twin allows you to adapt and play around with potential efficiencies. For example, you have a big factory, you've been running it for 50 years. Maybe if we change one component, maybe it'll increase the efficiency by 5%, but you can't do that in real life because you're using that facility. So a digital version of that, a digital twin, allows you to tweak and tune and enhance and see what could happen. And then that'll allow you to say, okay, if we make this change, yes, we will get 5% efficiency increase. And then you can actually go in and make that change in the future in the real facility. So that's all I had, and I'm hitting right at 45 minutes. So it's perfect timing, I think. So Abdul Hadi, I'm open to questions, till the end of the end of the session. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Nadeem, for this great topic and presentation. So if anyone have any questions?
I think Rohit has a question.
Rohit, you can ask your question.
Yeah, and unmute. Yeah.
Yes, please unmute and ask your question. If you cannot talk, you can leave your question on chat.
Yeah, either way. That's a great question. Disadvantages of a digital twin. Well, I mean, for sure, one of the disadvantages of a digital twin is that it is definitely not a physical system. So however much you want to simulate a physical system, it's not going to be perfect because you don't have real world conditions. Even if you go to the nth degree and try your absolute best to simulate a physical environment, the digital environment will not be exactly what the physical environment is. I think that's the number one disadvantage, that you cannot have a perfect simulation. But that said, 90-95% is okay. You don't have to account for every single potential condition, and changing temperatures, changing, real world conditions. So I think that's probably the only disadvantage. But even though it's a disadvantage that it can't fully simulate the physical structure and the physical characteristics of 100%, it still gives you so much value that it's, there's no question that, it's something that it's a no-brainer. meaning it adds so much value because it gives you like a whole digital instance that you can play with in any which way, and that experimentation can be translated, to the physical environment. All of this information work in large companies. How could individuals make use of these tools? Now, Muhammad, what tools are you talking about specifically? We mentioned many things, but just in general, it's as simple as going to the cloud provider, for example, Oracle, me coming from Oracle, going to the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure online and opening an account. And you can create a server, and that server will allow you to use all of these tools, artificial intelligence, called data science, data warehouse, you name it, all of these. And that's, I think, the beauty of the cloud. In the past, you would not in any way, and I'm talking about just 10 years ago, you as an individual, maybe 10, 15 years ago, you as an individual would not have access to these tools because they're cost prohibitive. You don't have, the means to pay. Like I remember back in the early 2000s, I remember reading that Coca-Cola company spent $60 million implementing their ERP system. $60 million. Now, a small business, this is cost prohibitive. You can't even think about using like ERP in your system. But now it's so much easier because everything's on the cloud, everything's web-based. So you can actually have access to large enterprise systems, or let's say enterprise functionality that's tailored to small businesses. And by a small business, I mean somebody, like a company that only has 10 employees or 50 employees or 100 employees. They can use the tools that before were only possible for very large companies. So I think using a cloud service provider, Oracle is one of them. We have a very good offering, but also Amazon, Microsoft, Google, all the big ones, Salesforce, they're perfect opportunities for small businesses to go and use these tools. It's all on the cloud. Any other questions? I hope that after this session, you guys learned how to do combinations. Maybe we could do permutations in the next session.
I think there is no more questions. So thank you, Engineer Nadeem, for your presentation. And thank you all attendees for your participation. And see you in the next sessions of our mentorship phase. Thank you so much, Engineer Nadeem.
Shukran. Thank you so much, Abdul Hadi, and of course, the Hackathon team.
Thank you.